Hey, everybody. Welcome to Lettermen Live. We are Roosters on Olentangy River Road. I am Jerry Birmingham. This is Bobby Carpenter, Justin Zwick, and Zach Boren. I'm filling in for Austin Ward this week, so in advance, sorry for sucking.
Sorry, and you're welcome.
Sorry for sucking. Guys, thanks for joining us on this wonderful Monday. How are your brackets?
I'm winning the Zwick family pool still, even though I had 4 Big Ten teams in the Final Four, so that's going to slowly go away. But, man, it sucks.
The only good thing is,
rough.
at least like talking to people regionally here, everybody was probably on the same plan. Like, okay, Ohio State probably getting to Sweet 16, Elite 8. I'm in the Final Four. Illinois probably in the Final Four. Purdue winning a couple of games. So, like, you didn't get slaughtered regionally. Now, nationally, you're getting destroyed. It's a bad situation.
It's also a little misleading because there's still a butt ton of games that have to happen this afternoon. So, right now in the Lettermen Row Roosters bracket, extravaganza we've got going on. There's 270 entrants.
Nice.
Bob, Jay-Z, and Austin Ward are all in the top 10 as of right now.
Yeah, right now.
I'm getting destroyed.
Zach is checking in at number 239.
Yep.
Which apparently
getting
is
destroyed.
Not great.
Wait. I thought you wanted the most points, right? 239 is good. Right?
No,
that's rank. I don't think you've got to 200 yet, point-wise.
That is not points. That's actually very, very bad. Obviously, Ohio State, everyone here would have had the Buckeyes winning at least their first game against number 15 seed Oral Roberts. They didn't.
Yes.
They were not good, and Buckeyes are out. I just want to know, from your guys' perspective, athletically, what is the one game that you played in where you lost to someone that you had no business losing to, and what happened?
Purdue twice.
Okay.
Happened twice. Purdue. At Purdue 2 times. It's the thing that and I'm sure Bobby and Zwick could touch on this. I think football is a sport where it's hard for an upset to happen, but a sport like basketball, right, where guys can just get hot, start draining it from threes, it's like sometimes it doesn't matter how more athletically gifted you are than another team. Basketball is just one of those weird sports where anything can happen, and it's a game of momentum. And football. There's waves of momentum as well and emotion, and we talk about that, but it's a little bit more slower pace, right, than the game of basketball. But yeah, the games that stick out to me for sure are Purdue twice when you were like, this team shouldn't even be on the same.
The Fighting Danny Hopes. Yeah,
no doubt. It's bad. I mean, the spring game should have been more competitive than that game. We go out there and lose.
That's good. I don't know. I was thinking about, we had a 3-game losing streak our sophomore year.
But 2 of them.
I'm trying to think, what team we should have really beat, though, because we weren't really.
Yeah, you weren't better than
we
that.
weren't necessarily great at that moment in time. Northwestern, probably just because it was Northwestern.
We hadn't lost to them in
we hadn't lost to them in a long time.
33.
It goes into overtime, and, gosh, that was a 45-35 ball game, and we just didn't. Our offense wasn't very good.
Well, we had shot. We had opportunities,
We did.
different things. And I didn't play very well on defense. I had strep throat that week. So I missed a couple of days of practice.
Tone dropped the ball at the end of the game. That would have been a good one. Nuge missed a field goal in overtime. Things that didn't normally happen just kind of happened to us.
And they were on fire. They ran the spread. That was back before everybody ran the spread. The spread used to be.
Bazinet was dealing back then. They had the running back was good too.
Sutton. Tyrell
Sutton. Yeah,
no, it wasn't Sutton yet. It was another guy from Ohio.
Sutton was younger.
It was. I'm struggling on his name.
Gosh.
Sutton was the next year. But, yeah, they had another Ohio guy.
Yeah.
They had players.
Fillmore, they had a little receiver that was really good. I remember his.
Yeah, Fillmore and Duque was playing guard up there. They had NFL
Barry
players.
Cofield was a defensive lineman. I'll never forget. He hit me the first play of the game. He goes, "It's going to be a long night for you, Jay-Z," because we played in the Big 10 or the Big 33 and all that together, and it was a long night.
So they were better, but it wasn't like we weren't bad. We were more talented.
We could have won the game, but it wasn't over the top that I was like, oh my gosh.
National championship 2 years before that.
Yeah.
So it's in basketball, like the 3 ball is the equalizer, man. If you get 2 guys that can shoot the 3 and you choose not to really play defense, you turn it over and you don't make your free
with
throws.
Basketball, you got one guy gets hot, you can take over a game, right? You put LeBron James on one of these teams, he's going to win you most of those games.
And Oral Roberts had 2 guys that get hot. They had 2 dudes that scored 60 of their points.
Yeah, I saw that. That's impressive.
And Ohio State, didn't. For the last month and a half, they hadn't shot the ball at all. E.J. Liddell didn't make a 3 in the last 2 games of the season for Ohio State. He missed a clutch free throw at the end of the game. And then, like, the narrative shifted, right? I mean, at the point when the game's over, everyone realizes the game's over, season's over, whatever.
That's the madness.
And then the real madness happens Friday night, and you start to see from E.J. Liddell posting on social media the things that he was receiving from fans. And I don't want to say Ohio State fans even, because it's more likely it was someone who lost money on a bet or something like that. And it made me think, like, for guys like you, and I know, Jay-Z, you probably went through this more than these two did, what was it like to get that kind of crap from people? Like, I mean, people who don't know you, who have no interest in your life beyond what happens in those 60 minutes. Like, what is that? What was the worst thing that you remember getting for yourself? I don't even want to ask about Ryan Hamby and the way that that thing went, but for you personally, as a highly ranked recruit coming in, you know, you're supposed, you know, expected by a lot of people to be like the guy.
Yeah. It was tough. I mean, and it wasn't really that bad. That Texas game was probably, I mean, Ryan talked about it back then, I believe. You know, I think they talked to him about the media and stuff. You know, I was getting the same sorts of things at home. I just wasn't talking to the media or anything like that, you know. So it's just tough because you're going from, like, the worst thing that you could have thought could happen to you that week. You just lost a game that you prepared really hard for and, you know, you put everything into. And so you're already down. I mean, EJ was not feeling well coming off of that game, and then all of a sudden you go to your social media, which thank God we only had Facebook back then on a computer. You know, it wasn't like everybody
and it had to be Ohio State students.
Well,
at that time.
you had to be a student. You had to be, you know, this and that. So it wasn't like it is today, you know, on that level. But, you know, you're down and they're kicking you. And it's not fun. And you just think, like, what, you know, you just have to remember those people that are sending you that stuff would probably give anything they could to be where you are in the position you're in, you know, playing the sport that you love and being that, you know, with that program that you love and that sort of thing. So it's not fun. It's tough, but that's just the way it goes and the way things have gone with phones and social media in today's society, man. It gives everybody a voice no matter what, and most of them are probably hiding behind fake accounts anyways, but it's just it's tough deal.
It is. It's you know, I didn't even realize that. You know, we're playing together. I had no idea.
Oh, yeah.
You talk about, you know, the phone at the end of the game. I'm like, all right. I mean, I watched that play.
You're like, well, what'd they get on you for? Yeah, well.
I mean, it's just, I didn't even think about that as being something that was determining, because there's so many. As a team, you look at it holistically, and you're like, well, there was this that could have happened. I dropped an interception here. We did that. Like, you don't all push it onto one person because you realize that, especially in football where there's that many guys. But you know, and I would like to blame social media. And, you know, Justin, we had Facebook, like, from a computer. Like, people. I mean, Ryan Hamby, like, and I didn't even want to get into it with his name just because he's a good dude and we enjoy it. Like, great guy. He had never dropped a ball before that.
He wanted to catch the ball. I just didn't, you know, it is what it is.
And the people actually, like, penned letters, put a stamp on it, put it into an envelope, and put it in their mailbox and sent it to the Woody Hayes. And it was in the same vein of the stuff that E.J. Liddell was getting. And I couldn't believe that was happening. Like you said, you don't get up at 4:30 in the morning in the winter, go scrape ice off of your car to go work out and go through all these things in hopes of losing. And the passion that makes Ohio State, the Buckeye Nation, great. What it is, it's fantastic. And it's a very small sliver. Okay. You know, and no one's asking, like, hey, sit there and be like, hey, you can be disappointed. You can be angry. I'm not telling you to say, hey, great job. It was a great season. Like, you can be upset about it. That's fine. That's great. That's what makes it awesome. That's
what makes you a fan.
But, like, transitioning from that to, like, hatred to the person where they ruined.
Kill yourself. Do us all a favor. And, you know, like, what?
They ruined your life.
That's where you went with us losing a game is to, I should kill myself?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about crazy. We were talking about before we came on the air, like, in relationships and stuff, sometimes there's that method where you'll write a letter out and get out what you want to say, and then you throw it away.
Yeah.
But these people actually had to then fold it, mail it, put lick a stamp, lick the envelope, send
cost some money. Actually, I mean, there was like cost associated with it.
I think Zwick touched on it. I'm going to take it a step further. Zwick said it's people that probably wish they would do anything to be in your shoes. I'm going to go farther, say the people that are actually writing this stuff and are putting this stuff out there are the scumbags who have probably never even played a sport in their life. They're probably sitting there, have no idea what it takes to put in the work to become a Division I athlete, have no idea what it takes to even show up to junior high or high school practice, have no idea what it's like to lift a weight in their life, to go out and train and to pull 2-a-days in the morning and at night. They've got no idea what it's like, right? These are the people that are the high school heroes that acted like they could make every single shot at a gym on a Saturday night or a Friday night. These are guys that probably have never picked up a basketball in their life, never attempted to play in a pickup game or anything. They just have no idea what they're talking about, and they're the same ones that are sitting at home that aren't motivated, that have nothing going for them, and that's not me.
They don't.
They just
they don't know how to deal with loss either.
They don't.
I mean, I'm not saying none of them played sports or anything, but when you don't go through that, growing up and learn how to lose and learn, just what all comes with it, that you're not going to win every game. As athletes, we probably brush it off a little bit easier just because we've been there and, we know, even though we strive and work our tails off to win every game, it's just that's not the way it's going to go. So I think we can deal with it a little bit better. And I think that's why you get those crazy fans yelling at the screens and stuff. Like, I don't think I've ever yelled at a screen.
But I think that's okay. I think the passionate fans that are yelling at TV screens are that, Ohio State loses and their weekend is completely ruined because of the defeat. That's okay. It's taking it to the extreme that they did is just
personal.
Those people just have problems. I mean, they've got moral issues. Seriously.
Yeah, you're right. I just look at it as being playing and now being, a fan and alumni. I'm sitting there. What did I do to help Ohio State win? Well, I sat in my recliner. I poured a couple drinks during the game. I
yelled at the refs a couple times.
Yelled at the refs. My emotions went up and down. And then when it was over, I'm like, that was the extent of my commitment outside of watching other games leading into it.
Then you go on to something else for the day. Yeah.
I mean, I know for a fact, like, all the things that they've done, how tough and how they've sacrificed. Like, hey, had a couple drinks, watched the game. I'm disappointed.
There's nobody who feels worse than those guys in the locker room, after that game.
Well, and E.J. Liddell, and not all that different than him, but E.J. Liddell's a good free throw shooter. Yeah. Like, I mean, he's a mid-70s% free throw shooter. I guarantee you he's probably thinking, how the heck did I miss that? I practice. I do all these things. I'm good. I'm good at this.
Yeah, but clearly it wasn't just him. They went 9 of 18 from the stripe. And, there's that meme that social media has made people way too comfortable saying something and not getting punched in the face.
Keyboard warrior.
And, I guess that's life. But their Buckeyes are moving on, right? Season's over. But now, real sports is back.
Spring ball.
Real sports is back. We're going to be right back. We're going to take a quick break here at Roosters on Olentangy River Road. This is Lettermen Live.
Roosters is one of the unique companies that we deal with. They're involved in everything we do, from our personal foundation to also the Cancer Research Fund. And that's from the Buckeye Cruise from Cancer to all the events leading up to the Buckeye Cruise.
They donate back to different organizations that are near and dear to their heart, and we're so fortunate to have been with Roosters now for a long, long time.
All the folks at Roosters are just genuinely kind folks, and they want to make a difference.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
Thank you, Roosters Foundation.
So, football's back, guys. Ohio State started spring practice on Friday. Spring practice number 2 is in the books as of Monday morning. When you got to Ohio State as freshmen, and the early enrollee phenomenon is sort of new, and I'm kind of interested in this because you guys started this really in the early 2000s, where guys started to get to campus early. What was your first memory of walking into the Woody Hayes Athletic Center and seeing the dudes that had been there and realizing oh crap, I don't know if I belong here yet.
I don't know if I belong here yet.
I can remember mine.
I guess for me it was walking in and you see everybody's lockers there and you're looking at dudes that you were just on television. So I guess for me a lot of it was watching Mike Doss, who went to the podium in February.
That's right.
I was very emotional talking to Mike. He said even to this day he's like, honestly, he's like, I did not know the decision I was going to make when I walked there. You could see him kind of working it through in his mind and deciding to come back. All right, man, this guy's a 3-time All-American. And then all of a sudden, they're rotating and they rotate DBs with and they'll rotate different position groups at different times. So you may find yourself out there with the guy. And it's like, oh gosh, you can make a call kind of quiet because if it's too loud and they hear me and it's wrong.
And it's wrong.
Hey, make it. And you yell and you're kind of afraid. There's trepidation. This dude knows everything about it and you just don't want to mess it up. Yeah. And so you see these guys. That's where the transition. And it's a little bit different now because of Birm. I mean, you're chasing dudes down at high schools in Atlanta, Georgia. So there's a lot more focus around it. I guess it kind of started a little bit when we were coming out, but you go from being a guy who's playing in high school football. And maybe there's some coverage with recruiting.
One of the bigger guys on the field,
To where everybody's elite, and you watch these guys now play on national television on Saturday. And they're All-Americans in Ohio State, all right, he's going to the NFL next year. He's going to the NFL next year. And I just came from Lancaster High School. Yeah. So this is it's a fairly significant jump. They're one step away from being professional. You're one step away from just getting a diploma.
Graduation party. I'll never forget mine. It wasn't necessarily before I got there. but it was like one of the first practices where I had to do inside drill. Because that one quarterback always goes with the offensive line, defensive line. They do inside. You hand the ball off, make some calls, if there's a check or something. And I'll never forget, Alex Stepanovich was the center at that time. And I came from, Massillon. We had some big offensive linemen, 6'4", in high school is pretty good size offensive line. But, these guys are 6'5", 6'6", 330 pounds.
Every one of them.
The ass on Alex Stepanovich, it's just like I'm sitting there like, oh my God, these are grown men, and like Bobby said, you're making checks.
Yeah,
Alex, hey, we're good, right? Hey, we're good because you don't want to mess up because these are grown men. They've been there. That they've been on TV. They've been through it all, and so that was like the first like oh crap. I remember thinking, this is the real deal, Holyfield, and but you make it through. You get in, and once you meet the guys, and you're in the program, and you're lifting, and you see kind of what all goes into it. You start to get in line.
Yeah, I think my thing is when you first walk in there, those first couple team meetings, it's like you're trying to find the lay of the land, right? You've always been there as a recruit, and you go in there, it's kind of like you're chauffeured around, right, and you do the thing. But then when you're actually there and you're supposed to be a quote-unquote grown man and you've got meetings and this and that, it's like, okay, you kind of try and blend in with the crowd and just move with the masses and be like, okay, I'm in my seat, team meeting, okay, got it, sit there, pay attention. It's you just try and find the routine, try and find the way to kind of fit in, right, and just make sure that you're not the young guy that looks clueless. And so that was my biggest thing. But you go in there and guys like Cam Hayward and just massive dudes that are, that were seniors when I was a freshman. I'm like, my gosh, this is crazy. 3 months earlier, I was playing the Golden Gales, and on a football field, right? And I think that's crazy. I think the very first time in the meeting room, you finally get to a point like, okay, I'm playing these guys, I'm good. The crazy thing for me was, I think it hit me, was I actually started as a true freshman, right? The very first game, I'm running out against Navy, and I'm starting, and I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go, right? Well, first game gets by, you're good. Well, the second game of my freshman year, I'm sitting there starting, it's college game day, and we're playing USC at night. And I'm like, oh, man, right? I think that's the first time it hit me where I'm like, okay, Taylor Mays is a safety, and Taylor Mays is a 6'4" bruiser, and I know, I'm going against him. I forget who some of the linebackers were, but it was obviously the year after Cushing and those guys had left. So some guys were filling in or getting into those positions. But I think that was the first time where I'm like, oh my gosh, a year ago I am sitting here at a high school football field, and now it's college game day. I'm 2 games in, and I'm like Zwick said, you're still trying to find your way on a football field. Like, okay, the game is moving fast, especially in a game like this. I just got to make sure I'm looking at everything and picking up pass pro correctly and communicating with, Boom Heron behind me and doing those things.
How does it make you feel that Ohio State threw away the fullback position? They're like, we do not want any more of these.
Hey,
last one. You go down in the books.
The last one, man. That was it. They
couldn't have another one after Zach Boren came through.
I don't know. Maybe it's because they didn't like me. They were like,
we cannot have any more of this. No. Can't have any more of that. I like to go back to your guys' recruiting class, and your guys, it sounds like a weird thing to say. I don't know if I say that correctly, but whatever.
Yins.
So
Yins.
The recruiting class in 2002 was really, for me, and I've obviously been covering recruiting a long time now, but you guys, that class was the first time I really watched it intently, and I remember sitting on a computer waiting for Mike DeAndrea to make his college decision. I remember reading all about Derek Morris.
Yeah, I remember Derek.
And the recruitment that was happening around him. And I think that it's just wild to see how things have gone now, because you see the Ohio State official account posting all these photos of the young guys, like the true freshmen, because they're worried about name, image, likeness down the road and all this stuff. How different would your life have been if Ohio State would have been pumping sunshine up your butt before you even got on campus?
I don't know. I go through now and look at the recruiting visits, and they come in and they've got a logo and a brand plan. And
really?
Yeah. It's amazing.
Oh, gosh.
I'm like,
I didn't know that.
It's unreal. I'm like, their marketing team that they have and what they do for these players. It's unbelievable. They have 4 people dedicated to.
Ari Gold coming in. What are we going to do for them?
It's basically what it is. And so I don't know. I think probably the world's in a different place right now, to where all those things have kind of been popularized. But, I'll never forget, Mark D'Antonio was my recruiting coach. And he's from Zanesville, Ohio.
Famously known for sunshine pumping.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
If you've ever watched a Michigan State football game, Mark always looks like he's having a good time.
Always.
Very, very happy.
Smile just always on his face.
Two quick stories about that is, your freshman year, you're getting yelled at all the time. I mean, it's intense. It's like you're more afraid in like camp early on in practice than I ever was in the games because coaches, I mean, it's dead silent. You hear them, and the last thing you want is your name to be yelled across. What are you doing? Set the front. Get this. Make the call. Where are you lined up? I mean, you're like, and the panic sets in, and it only regresses you further. But I remember joking with Coach D'Antonio probably midway through, and I mean, it's just the common joke, like, yeah, you're done recruiting, you're signed now, whatever. It's like getting married. Okay, the facade is over. And he's like, hey, what are you jogging in? I'm like, Coach, I mean, you never laugh or joke with us anymore. We used to always have fun in recruiting. Like, he always asks, how are you doing? He's like, hey, Bobby, he's like, outside of practice and meetings and games, I'm the same guy that recruited you. And I'm like, but when do I see you outside those times? Not going to your house and hanging out. And then with that, fast forward, I guess that would have been 2002. Fast forward to 2008. My wife were getting married. Coach D'Antonio comes in with his wife, Becky. They flew in like a little bit late because Michigan State was playing that day. We got married on March 15th. And my wife had a couple drinks and come up, say hi to Becky. My parents are talking. And he gives her a smile and hugs. And she goes, I think that's the first time I've seen you smile. And like his wife like elbows him. She's like, I tell him to smile more. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, Coach, you look like the most miserable guy ever. You tell me how much you love football, but every time during the game, you look like a hostage.
Well, I'll never forget coming out on another base off that. I was, scout team freshman year, so if scout team did good, we got yelled at. If scout team did bad, we got yelled at. Dino was the guy, and I'll never
throw it to the guy that's circled.
Yeah. Don't throw it to the guy that's open. Throw it to the guy. That's where they're going to throw it. But I remember coming off the field one time after I think we just got done doing up downs or something, at scout team offense. And I'll never forget, I think he just threw his arm around my shoulder and just kind of looked at me and just gave me a smirk. And it's just like, then I'm like, all right, he doesn't seem like such a bad guy. But yeah, he's intense. But going back to the recruiting, I mean, it was, gosh, I don't know if you remember, Bob, but I called 20-some guys back then because I committed really early. Yeah. And, I mean, that would be way different nowadays because, I mean, I had to find phone numbers to call these guys.
You had to call information.
I'm calling, Southern
Carpenter.
Yeah, I'm calling. I was calling guys down in like Southern, Miami, where like parents weren't talking English. Hi, I'm trying to tell them who I am and who I'm trying to talk to.
What are you selling?
Yeah, it is kind of like that, but it may be way different nowadays because you got your Twitter handles and everybody has social media, so you just reach out that way. But I mean. It was wild just being an 18-year-old calling guys you never met before and just talking to them about Ohio State football or, trying to hope they knew who you were when you said your name.
I'm trying to envision how you got a hold of Chris Gamble.
Oh, well, he was already there.
Did you talk to Santonio before?
I talked to Santonio.
That would have been interesting.
The one was a guy out of Florida. He went to my John Baptiste or something. John Baptiste, is that? Gosh, anyhow, his family didn't speak much English. It was rough. But I'll never.
It sounds Haitian.
Yeah, it was something along those. But it was different. It was fun. I mean, we had a great recruiting class that year, and if I had a small part in that, that's fun for me. But guys like Bob and AJ and Mike. And Mike was the big one back then. Gosh, I called Doug Daddish. He was on a trip to Colorado for his official.
Oh yeah.
And when I get Doug on the phone. He's like, we start talking, and he's like, yeah, actually, we had to land halfway to Colorado because we had problems with the plane. And I'm like, well, that's a sign you need to, stay in state at Ohio, But, just little things like that I remember, but it'd be way different nowadays, man. Gosh, I couldn't even imagine.
Urban always was pumping sunshine for you. So
well, sunshine. I had Joe Daniels. He was the nicest guy ever.
How would life have been different for you? You weren't, one of the higher recruited guys coming into your class, Zach, but what did you expect when you got on campus for that first couple weeks and you started to see like that life was changing and that you were being de-recruited?
So I came in early, and back then it was still really new. So in my class, there were 4 of us. It was myself, Adam Holman, Jack Mewhort, and Storm Klein. And so, like, us 4 came in early together and kind of hung together. I think it'd be so much different now with, 16 guys or whatever.
15 early-enrollees.
15 that basically is your class.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's so I think it's completely different. So back then we kind of had our group, and the thing that would be hard now compared to back then is recruiting is so hyped up, right? Even when I came here in 2009, like, recruiting was big, rivals and Scout was starting to, really make a big push, but the social media wasn't massive like it is now, right? You weren't being just pumped up nonstop. And so, the social media being pumped up and all of the edits and photos and, all of that stuff, and now coming in and having to be put into place is such a culture shock to some kids to go from here to all the way down there. I think back then it's kind of, hey, you come in, you roll with the punches. I mean, there wasn't that much of you probably had more of a personal relationship with your recruiting coach than you did when you actually got to college. But at some point, you have to make a decision, hey, I'm going to put my head down and grind, right? I mean, my recruiting class had a whole bunch of 5-star kids like Jamal Berry and Dorian Bell. And, my God, Jonathan Newsome. And, like, some of those guys that, never made it, right? Yeah. Duron Carter was in my class, 5-star kid, right? I think we had 4 5-star kids, and all 4 of them never made it.
Corey Brown.
Right? Yeah, Corey Brown was up there.
Pittsburgh Brown.
Yeah, Pittsburgh Brown, right? So, like, all these guys were super highly ranked kids, but at the end of the day, Jordan Whiting, right? I mean, we could name all these guys from that class, and at the end of the day, you have to put your head down and grind no matter what.
When you came in early, were you hoping to be the next AJ Trapasso? Was that the deal?
No, not at all. Bob.
Really
Bob, I was not trying to be trapped.
I'm just trying to think
AJ made a splash.
I'm trying to think about Zach, Storm Klein, Ross Homan, and Jack Mewhort.
Adam Homan is
I'm sorry. All these guys hanging out together likely was interesting conversation.
Late night benching going on in the apartment.
It was. It was. It was a weird dynamic, that's for sure.
How long did it take for you to feel like you were a part of the team, as far as the older guys actually accepting you as freshmen?
I think probably, when you maybe start school, somewhere between the end of camp and probably the start of, because we were on quarters, so we had like 3 weeks in between. So once you kind of start getting through the non-conference, you got a little bit of a body of work there. I think at that point you can kind of start feeling it. And I would come up and work out in the summer, so I knew some of the defensive guys, but it's really just my position group. I wasn't venturing too much outside of that, and I definitely wasn't talking to guys on the offensive side of the ball. I didn't know anything about them. So it was probably at that point where, you completed camp, like, okay, this guy showed up every day. You kind of see what you can do a little bit. And then, maybe you get a couple games under your belt too. So it's probably somewhere in there. But you never really feel like your freshman year, I mean, you're just running on a treadmill. Like, all of a sudden it's over and it's like, okay, we're done. And then, okay, like 20 guys leave the team. And now you realize like how college football churns.
On the flip side, though, when you were veterans, who was the say a name if you want. I don't care. I'm not protecting anyone's feelings. Who is the one guy that came in as a freshman that you were like, I can't wait to beat the crap out of this kid?
Oh, goodness. That doesn't sound very nice, Birm.
Yeah.
I'm not a nice
beat
person.
the crap out of
I'm not a nice person. Well, geez, you're playing quarterback. You weren't beating the crap out of him.
But I mean, mentally, Robbie showing off, I beat the crap out of him. I saw him years later, and I apologized to him. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but I would give him a bunch of crap when I was a senior.
So you probably don't remember this because you would have been over with the offense. So he was our scout team quarterback. He threw a pick one day, and I was running back, and the 2 people you block on interceptions, the intended receiver and the quarterback, and I think I lit him up. Probably like 6 plays later, they dial one up on a reverse, and he doubles back, and I was rushing off the edge and just smokes, because Robbie was a big dude.
He was a big dude.
Knocks me off my feet. And I looked over him like, I had that coming, man. Like, I got no problem with him. We used to ride those guys pretty hard.
When I apologized, he was like, that was good for me, man. He was like, I'm glad you did that, looking back on it. But I was like, well, I'm glad you say that now because I've felt bad for a long time. Antonio Hinton was another one. You remember Antonio?
Oh, gosh.
Tone was my guy, but I'd always joke with him. I say, Coach Daniels, can we put his recruiting tape on just to see what got him here, please?
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, that's how bad it was in the quarterback room. But Troy and I, we were pretty tough on the young guys.
I don't know. I
You're
don't
just Mr. Friendly to everyone.
He's so friendly.
Bob would go around like I'm gonna be honest. I used to fight all the time in practice, but I think it was one of those things where you get to a point where if you are nice to everyone, like I talk to everyone. It didn't matter if you're offense, defense. Like I knew. Back to Bob's answer, once you start hitting the season, you get through camp and everything, you start hitting the season and the locker room, that's when the locker room kind of becomes closer because it's like, hey, we're in the middle of the season, we're fighting together. Like, you kind of get your quirks about it, right? The funny stories start happening, and that's when you kind of become a team and become tight. And so I knew how I felt coming in early, and so I always tried welcoming the guys or whatever. So it's always a respect thing. There were guys that, not even young guys, but like Dorian Bell and I would fight all the time. And I would just hammer him all practice long and tell him I was going to keep on coming after him, right? But it was a respect thing. Like, were we hanging out off the field, off the practice field? No. But on the field in the locker room, like, we were cool. It was never one of those things where I wanted to make someone's life miserable. Carlos Hyde and I got into a fist fight in a players only team meeting, and Carlos and I are still super tight, right? I mean, it's,
that's awesome.
It's one of those.
Well, you know guys that you can kind of get on, and kind of give it to a little bit, and they'll come back at you some here and there. But I mean, that's part of being in the locker room. It's like you're in there with your brothers, kind of,
No doubt, it is.
You're giving your brothers crap for stuff they do, and they give you crap for stuff you do.
I think that's the way I treated it, right? I never wanted to go after someone where I was like, oh my God, I'm going to wear this dude down. Granted, there's guys where you're like, hey, I don't know if he's going to make it, based off of the way he's responding to certain things, the way he's looking dejected after a practice or whatever it might be. But it's a locker room with 105 guys. It's a brotherly feel, right? There's guys that that you can just hammer on and you can get it right back, and there's a rivalry there. But then there's also
and then you learn the ones that you can't really do it to, and
no doubt, exactly.
And part of it is, and I said it's kind of between the end of camp and the season, because some of these guys, when you're young, you realize like they're going to be playing on special teams and maybe rotating in, and so part of the thing is everyone gets in it, like not hazing or anything, but just being. You've got to be hard on these guys because they've got to understand the gravity of what is going to happen. You're going to be out there in front of 100,000 people. It's not just you. It's the other 10 guys on the field. It's the people on the other side of the ball. It's everything that goes into it. And so you learn, to ride them a little bit, and then to, when you can bring them back. And sometimes, it's putting an arm around them too. Yep. And so you kind of develop that. But also, since you mentioned our recruiting class, the class I think after us, in between. Some of those guys were around with Zwick that none of them really made it.
After us, it was a small class.
The Brandon Maupin, the Reggie Smith. I mean,
Lewis.
We used to grind on those.
Ira.
Lewis could play. Ira could play. Some of these guys.
They just didn't. Yeah.
There were guys in that class. Mel Tucker used to joke, and he'd yell out, "He's like, I want guys who played football in high school." And like he goes, "Do I have to put out in the lantern?" He's like, "I want a guy who played football." And he would yell that out, and he had this super weird delivery. It's amazing, but he would yell that, and I'm like, I'm not sure that some of these guys did. I don't know what. That class was. There was some elite high level guys like Gonzo, and there's Dante Whitner and Ashton Bodie.
No doubt,
Lewis is a great player if he would have kept his head together. But I mean, there were some guys in that class. I'm telling you, I would love to see their film.
You should have called a players only meeting and gotten a fist fight. That's what those meetings.
These guys would have done. Most of those guys were gone in a year.
Oh yeah, they didn't stick around long. It took Krenzel and I probably about 6 games to become friends into my freshman year. I think that's another thing you got to think of when these 5 stars are coming in or whatever. There's guys who maybe that's their spot this year. Yeah. So I mean that's how we kind of were in that quarterback room, and it was him and Scotty and Troy and I and Jim Otis and Matt Trombitis. I mean, that was our quarterback room. But it took a while before, Craig got on the field and they were winning games and things before it was one of those where I could go up to him and, kind of talk to him about things or try and pick his brain a little bit. But that's just human nature, in my opinion.
It's interesting. We obviously right now, because of COVID and everything, we don't get a chance to see anything that happens on the field. So I'm just more interested in what happens in building that camaraderie. So we're not going to get to see them probably till April 17th in the spring game. Buckeyes have practice number 2 under their belts. The Buckeye basketball season is over. Lettermen Live is over. We're done.
That's it.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Appreciate it.